you very much indeed. Sonic Rock. This next one's called Persh. Sean Connery's Wallet. How's the sound? Can you hear it okay? Yeah, a couple of nods over there, yeah?
As I was going down the stairs, I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. I wish he'd go away.
About that, guys. I got like one earphone in. Like I said, they changed everything on me. I'm completely flailing here. It used to be that you could use Google Hangouts or Google Plus or whatever the hell it was to stream. But now you have to, as far as I can tell, you have to use a specific streaming software. And the problem with that is I can't get OBS to just... Okay, Rico, I think did I successfully turn the music down? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me over the music? Let me turn the music way down. And I'm sorry if your eardrums are bleeding. Okay. I should be full audio. I should be like 10% desktop audio. I don't know why they, it's like your local convenience store, You go in there, you're just looking for potato chips, and every time you go in there, like once 3 months for a bag of potato chips, they move the potato chips to the other side of the store, and you spend 3 hours looking for the damn potato chips. It's, my voice needs to go up. All right, I don't know what to do about that because I've got the OBS level maxed out. I suppose I could look at my microphone settings. Let's see what my... If they didn't change everything, this wouldn't be so pathetic. Okay, so let's see. Manage audio device, recording, microphone, properties. Yeah, my microphone is way down. I can see that. Configure. Oh, jeez. Set up microphone. Usually my microphone is like blasting and I have to turn it down. Maybe that's what I did at some point. Let me see here. Microphone, set up microphone, headset microphone. No, it's, I think that's about as loud. I mean, I could shout. That's not good. I just don't have a quick. Okay, let's see. Wow, you guys are you're really along for a ride here. The computer did not hear you very clearly. I don't know why that is. And why isn't there just a microphone lever? Easy microphone lever. Okay, all right, let me kill the music altogether. Okay, so the music is killed altogether. Is that any better? I'm still getting pathetic levels on my microphone, and like I said, my microphone is maxed out. Let's see if there's anything. Yeah. All right. How about now? Can you hear me now? Okay. I'm very sorry about that. You guys can. You can ridicule me for that because that was pathetic. All right. But see, here's the problem. I plan on playing some audio and some video in the stream, and I don't want to blast your eardrums out while I do it. Like I said, everything changed on me. It used to be back in the day that I knew when I streamed, I came on, I set one window as the stream, I set one audio level as the stream, and everything was happy from there. Okay, I'm going to stop griping here and I'm just going to get to it, all right? I'm sure you're all sick of hearing me flailing, and you're probably sick of looking at Keith Raniere's problem glasses there in the video, and Allison Mack's disarming girl next door good looks and her cheesy smile. Well, you're probably sick of Raniere. You're probably not sick of looking at Allison Mack. She's, gotta admit, she's eye candy. And that's who you've been watching if you don't know. That is Keith Raniere. He's the founder of NXIVM, which this video is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about me flailing around. And his partner in crime there, and in some aspects that's not a figurative phrase there. That's a literal phrase. That's Allison Mack there. They're having a cheesy little chat together, showing off how nice they are to one another, and their repartee and how well they get along. And hopefully, with any luck, instead of getting to know my pathetic streaming skills, we'll be getting to know them pretty well in this video. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to go back and forth from Firefox, where I have all this set up for the stream, and the chat window. You weren't supposed to see me going back and forth to the chat. You were supposed to see what I set up for you in Firefox, so you could follow the flow of the stream, if that makes sense. Anyway, I'm going to be covering a lot of ground in this stream and playing a lot of media, assuming it doesn't blow your eardrums out. So you got to bear with me. And like I said, they changed everything, so you really got to bear with me. I'm going to do my best here to keep it like to an hour, because I know it's Saturday night and everybody wants to go out, and I want to go out. I got a bit of a dinner date here in a couple hours. And I know everybody's going to fatigue and drift off, so I'm going to try to keep it to an hour. But chances are it's going to go over that, because, like I said, we've got a lot of ground to cover. So if you got a favorite beverage, go ahead and fetch it and strap in, because this could be a long, winding ride. I myself am enjoying a Hefeweizen. That's my favorite beer. So cheers to everybody. I'm going to take a sip here. All right. I don't know if this disclaimer is necessary, but before I get into NXIVM, I'm going to start off with letting everybody know that if you don't know anything about NXIVM, it's loaded with a bunch of rich, uber-sensitive, sue-happy people. And I don't think they appreciate much that they get described as a scam or even this situation that's happening, describing it as a scandal, and they certainly don't like being described as a cult. So if I slip up here and portray an inaccuracy as a fact, I'm sure they might try to find out who I am and come after me. So let me state straight up, right up front here, that I have no personal experience with anybody in NXIVM. I've never been involved with the group, its members or its leaders. I've never met any of them. I've never even talked with anybody in the organization. It would be interesting if they happen to watch this stream, if they want to come on, that would be fantastic, but I don't think that's going to happen. And everything I say in this video that is not backed up with actual testimony from actual members or ex-members is simply my opinion and my personal conjecture. And generally speaking, any opinions I express in this stream that are based on my own experience are based on my own experience with other self-help groups like EST and Landmark. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but we may get into them later. I've had some friends and family members try to get me involved with these groups, and I've resisted with every thread of my being, but like I said, we'll get into that later. So anyway, if you're listening right now and you hear me speculate wildly or erroneously or hypothesize something that's completely freaking wrong, feel free to message me on YouTube or Gab. A few months back, I rage quit Twitter, so you can't reach me there anymore. Actually, that whole fiasco might be worth a video or a stream all on its own. Anyway, if I say something stupid, contact me on YouTube or Gab, please, or even in the chat, let me know. If you want to come on, I'll give you the link to the stream. Hopefully I can figure that bit out. That's going to be, I used to know how to do that too, but now I don't know how to do that. So that's going to be some more flailing. Apologize in advance for that. And if you're watching this as a standalone video later and you think I fucked something up, let me have it in the comments section. Okay, all the disclaimer aside there. So yeah, I've got so many things I want to cover regarding this cult that I had to make a few pages of notes here that I'll be scanning from time to time. Most of it will be off the top of my head, but so if you hear pages rattling like that, that's because I'm rattling pages as I go through my notes. All right, so another quick disclaimer here. If this topic of NXIVM has eluded you and it's all new to you, just keep in mind that it's not like I'm breaking any stories here or covering any fresh ground. This has been all over the newspapers, tons of videos on YouTube about it. There's been TV specials on it, all for months now. Pretty much since back in, I think it was November or October, the New York Times article came out about this group, kind of blowing the lid on the whole NXIVM scandal. And yes, we will eventually get into the details of the scandal here. All right, so let me just check. Rico's asking me about Jordan Peterson. In fact, I'm going to be talking about Jordan Peterson a little bit here. And sorry about the screwy windows and seeing the sausage making here on my live streaming dashboard and my streaming software. I honestly don't know what to do about that. It should be you should only see Firefox, but you're seeing pretty much everything going on my PC, so enjoy that if that interests you. Right, so like I said, we're covering ground that's been covered a million times before. In fact, there's a couple sites out there that have been dedicated specifically to the accusations of NXIVM being a cult and like the cult aspects of the organization. And those sites have been up and running for years now. They were created by a former NXIVM member who goes by the name Frank Parlato. I always want to say Parlato for some reason, but I'm pretty sure it's Parlato. As always, I'll be putting as many links as I can to sources I use in the stream or my videos in the description box below. Sometimes, though, I use so many sources that the text limit on the description box fills up on me, and I have to like spill over into the comments section. So, keep an eye if you're watching this as a standalone video later. Check out the description box, check out the comment section, come at this video with eyes wide open. All right, so why am I covering old news on a Saturday night, no less? Why am I not out and about? Well, the only reason I'm doing this stream is that hopefully I'm going to add some fresh perspective and some unexplored angles and territory that no one in the mainstream media seems to have noticed or cared to address when involving this NXIVM cult, this NXIVM scam or scandal, whatever you want to call it. And my interest in this topic mostly has to do with the women who have enabled this NXIVM scam or scandal, whatever you want to call it again, and who predictably enough seem to be about to walk scot-free from any legal fallout. And that's an aspect of this that will come as no surprise to anyone familiar with MGTOW philosophy or MGTOW content. How much women get away with all kinds of stuff in our society. All right, so before I get into my analysis here, I guess I got to give a brief history of NXIVM for those who are hearing about it for the first time. And I'm going to try to keep it very brief because I figure most people watching this now and anybody who's going to be watching the video later are in the know, so to speak. This is not virgin territory for them. And I really want to focus on this stuff. I mean, there's been plenty of history described in mainstream media. I really want to focus on the stuff mainstream media likes to gloss over, or that only gets mentioned in passing. And again, that's how the women in this scenario have enabled Raniere's little self-help empire and its transition into a cult. All of these news outlets like to act like he's Sauron who finally got a hold of the One Ring. And, he's in complete control and made it all happen himself with his own evil power. So anyway, if you're interested in the minute details, you're going to have to go off and do the research on your own. We're not going to get into them here. All right, so brief history of NXIVM. And there's the lovely office headquarters there. Apparently they're headquartered in Albany, New York. And I believe that's a picture of, their Albany, New York headquarters, their offices. And speaking of history, there's Keith Raniere with good old Eddie Albert. And welcome to 1990s infomercial hell. Right, so by most accounts, Keith, I don't have a picture of him as a child, but we'll go back to his childhood here. By most accounts, Keith Raniere, and I don't know if I've made this obvious or not yet, he obviously is the founder, the owner of NXIVM. He's the top dog. So by most accounts, or at least many accounts, he was some kind of child prodigy. And it's pretty much the standard stereotypical boy genius stuff. he was like a concert pianist by age 9 or 10 or something. And by age 16, he had several bachelor degrees in like philosophy or biology or, some such fields of study. I'm tempted to go into a Dr. Evil soliloquy here about ritually shorn scrotums and all that, but I won't. I'll spare everybody that. And by the way, don't take any of these specifics to heart about his childhood and any history of NXIVM, because I'm pretty much trying to do this by memory from what I read weeks ago. I've been thinking about doing this stream forever, so I just pulled the trigger tonight, and I apologize if I get any errors about the history here, but like I said, I'm going from memory. So anyway, he has all these amazing credentials before he even reaches adulthood. As you can see by this picture here, it looked like he decided to apply his impressive credentials and mental acumen by creating what looks like a Ron Popeil style infomercial business. It was called Consumer Byline back in the 90s. Again, I'm not going to get deep into the details on that. I'm sure you can assume all the cheesy, weird things that went on with it. And apparently it got hit with accusations of being a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme and ended up going belly up. So boy genius, his first major attempt at a corporation went belly up. So Raniere then spends years going through all the legal fallout of that. I'm going to take a sip of my beverage here because I need to wet my whistle. And there was some kind of legal settlement, where he didn't have to admit guilt, but he did have to give back a lot of the money that he quote unquote made. And again, a Ponzi scheme, if you know, there's no actual true revenue. It's just kind of shuffling around of money. So he had to give back any money that he was personally in possession of, as far as I can tell. And I guess he goes through some kind of personal turmoil over all this and comes out on the other side having an epiphany of sorts, in which he decides, hey, creating a dodgy corporation wasn't my thing. So let me go ahead and try to make a self-help group, a sketchy self-help group. And he adopts this half-baked guru persona and starts spouting all the requisite self-help trappings and comes up with NXIVM. That was his next great endeavor after Consumer Byline. I mean, just think to yourself, you go from a company that's, made on buying up surplus out there, buying in bulk and somehow retail selling it for profit, and you think you're a self-help guru. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. So poof, then, sometime after his epiphany, NXIVM comes into being. And he's from Albany, so he sets it up in Albany, New York, and we've already seen the picture of the Albany offices. I'm just going to take a quick second here and check out the chat. Yes, Rico, I do definitely identify as MGTOW. So thank you for asking that, and thank you for all your contributions in my chat. Yep, I am MGTOW. So if that paints any of that one way or the other, so be it. All right, so, I've been disparaging Raniere a little bit here. And I'm sure people, from all the press fallout, people have some pretty terrible ideas of what kind of character he is. And maybe that's fair, maybe that's not. I honestly don't know. But whatever you think of Raniere, he is an intelligent man. The guy's got some brains. We got to give him that much. So after this epiphany of his and after starting NXIVM, he comes to the realization that his self-help organization needs an edge. It needs something to make it stand out from the rest of the 2-bit self-help orgs. And again, I may get into, if we have time here, I may get into self-help organizations in general, and I'm not a big fan. Hopefully that's obvious. Maybe not hopefully, it just probably is obvious by now. So he creates a NXIVM subsidiary called Janus, which is specifically targeted to help, drum roll please, women. Again, Raniere is no fool. He knows where to go. He knows where to target his organization. Because he knows women go for this self-help crap like moths to a flame. He like I said, he's a smart guy. So he creates Janus. It's a program, a subsidiary. I think it's actually a company unto its own, under NXIVM, under the NXIVM umbrella. And then again, he knows that Janus itself needs an edge, and he figures out that edge entails fame and beauty, of course. He knows he needs some eye candy out there for the larger public to fall for to get wowed by his whole self-help org crap. And he knows they need that to take any interest. He also knows what that eye candy needs to get bamboozled into joining his operation, and that's self-help mystical mumbo jumbo. So he begins recruiting young and pretty actresses like Kristin, Kreuk, and Allison Mack for hopefully what is an obvious PR splash that they add to his organization. They're fetching looks, what they provide. And if you don't know who Allison Mack and Kristin Kreuk are, here they are. Here's a little collage of these two pals. And they were definitely buddies when they got involved in this NXIVM organization. Rumor has it that Kristin Kreuk got out of it at some point, and she claims that she got out of it at some point. But there's, I may get into, she's a strange one. I may get into her participation and her attempts at saying she's squeaky clean. May get into that later. Yeah, so he also created something called ESP, which is Executive Success Program, and Kristin Kreuk was heavy into that. She was actively participating in it, promoting it, and I think she did that up until about 2012, 2013, sometime around there, where she claimed she got out of the organization. Now, if you don't know who any of these two women are, they became famous by being cast in Smallville. I personally have not watched 2 seconds of Smallville, so I know nothing about it. But I do know, I guess, it was pretty popular. And I guess Kristin Kreuk's character in the show was a young Clark Kent's girlfriend. And I think maybe Allison Mack was kind of like a sidebar love interest for Boy Superman. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't watched 2 seconds of it. So yeah, once he starts getting actresses like this on board, Raniere that is, things start really rolling for NXIVM, and he starts to gain thousands, if not tens of thousands of members in NXIVM, in the self-help organization. And I'm not truly aware of the timeline of NXIVM. I think it was founded in 2002, 2003, and by like 2010, that's when we're talking about him having all these actresses on board and gaining tens of thousands of members. It's still pretty much a straightforward self-help organization. The cult-like atmosphere hasn't started by 2010. And maybe it's interesting to note that Kristin Kreuk, who claims to have gotten out of the organization, was the one who got Allison Mack, who got hot and heavy into NXIVM. She was the one who recruited Allison Mack into NXIVM. And in fact, when Kristin Kreuk left, Allison Mack stayed on board and, rose to the top of the ranks in NXIVM. She became, if you ask me, she became more influential than Raniere himself, but that's all speculation on my part. Getting back to I have to admit that I'm speculating a lot here based on what I've read. And Mack and Kreuk weren't the only actresses that NXIVM recruited. And keep in mind that at this point, it's not even Raniere doing any of the recruiting. They're all kind of the cogs are spinning on their own in NXIVM, and he at this point is just a figurehead. I guess he took on the those in the know inside NXIVM called him Vanguard. They all kind of have cheesy titles. Allison Mack eventually adopts the title Pimp Mack, and you can imagine, what that meant. And everybody in NXIVM, I don't know if they called her that to her face, but they all started to call her that. So recruiting actresses and all that, and the organization eventually has offices not only in Albany, U.S. in the United States, but it also had offices in Canada. I believe the Canadian offices were somewhere in the Vancouver area, because all of these actresses, Kristin Kreuk and Allison Mack and Sarah Edmondson, who we'll be talking about soon here, they're all from the Vancouver area. So I assume the NXIVM offices were in the Vancouver area, but anyway, it had offices in Canada, and it also has offices in Mexico. Now I don't know if any Mexican actresses from telenovelas or whatever, I don't know if they got involved in NXIVM, but the importance of Mexican offices will become apparent soon here. So I think another Canadian actress, well, actually I don't know if she's Canadian, but I know she got involved with NXIVM. It's that Asian actress from Battlestar Galactica, whose name I can never remember, and I can't be arsed to Google it to find out what her name is, but if you've seen Battlestar Galactica, you know who I'm talking about. So he's got all these celebrities on board now, and things are really rolling for him. And he even goes so far as him and Allison Mack combine forces to make an actor's seminar, or like an actor's self-help group within his larger self-help group of NXIVM. And they call this seminar, or this, whatever it is, this set of classes, this program, they call it The Source. And you can, we're not going to get into that. I mean, you can watch the videos of Allison Mack and Raniere, having a love fest with one another over creating this Source program. It's just really some cringy stuff and some difficult stuff to watch. In fact, the video that I was trying to show in the beginning as I set up this stream is, I believe, the video of those two talking about the Source. It's a video of those two talking. I can't remember where I grabbed it from, but all right. So that's the painfully brief overview of the glory days of NXIVM. And so far, besides the 1990s Ponzi scheme or the pyramid scheme, it all seems pretty innocent and, standard self-help stuff, right? It's just a lot of self-help mumbo jumbo, and, Keith Raniere portraying himself as a self-help guru. I mean, so far it doesn't seem too terribly different from Landmark or Est, if you guys are familiar with those groups. And again, I may be talking about them later, and self-help groups as a whole later. So just for now, all you need to know is, again, I don't hold them in terribly high regard, self-help groups, and like I said, we may get into that later. They may not, like groups, I hate to even mention them in the same breath as NXIVM, because as far as I can tell, they've never been up to anything quite as devious as NXIVM. So it's probably not fair to even mention them in the same breath. But you know, one thing they do share in common, as far as in my opinion on them is they're mostly a load of bogus, swindling crap, even when they're not a cult in the strictest sense of the word. My problem with them is they never, like when you get into them, you can never really get at what they're going to do for you. They never disclose that up front. It's just kind of like this weird give and take that they just try to get you sucked in without really, you know, telling you the benefits. And of course, they make you pay to go on your mission of personal discovery, you know, at their hands. And I personally, I think you can do it all for free. You can read some books. You can, whatever. As far as I'm concerned, they're mostly interested in the financial preservation of the organization itself rather than your personal or psychological development. And the really crucial crux for me, the gimmick that I don't like with them, is that they all seem to operate and expand their membership on some sort of peer pressure. They tell their members, anybody they get hooked in, they tell them that, you know, you can't succeed on your personal journey without involving the people in your lives, and you know, your family members and friends, people who have gotten you to where you are before you get involved with these self-help orgs. You know, you can't grow as a human unless you get them involved too. And that's, like I said, that's like the major gimmick, and it just really rubs me the wrong way. Seems to me, I don't know, maybe this is a character flaw to me, but you know, your personal journey as a person, you can do it all yourself. You don't need to pay somebody, and you certainly don't need to involve everybody else in your family who is probably very busy and doing their own thing, and your friends who are equally as busy and doing their own thing. But again, I you know, if there's time, I'll address that later. All right, so getting back to NXIVM, we might as well get right into the downfall of the evil self-help empire here, because so far I've only mentioned the good times with some, you know, personal criticisms of my own. And here's the part we've maybe all been waiting for. Here's the part where we get into the cult accusations, the sex trafficking charges, and more specifically the branding ritual that everybody's probably already heard about. Yeah, so let me check my notes here and see where we want to go here. Things are definitely, I don't even know what time it is here. All right, so we're already an hour into this. I should probably fast forward here and skip some stuff. I mean, I think I have some important things to mention here, but you know, this is looking, it's getting to where this might be a 3-hour stream. Let's see. Yeah, it's probably just best, rather than me getting into babbling about my my take on the whole cult aspect of NXIVM and putting it in my own words. We might as well just get right into the branding ritual. And this is and I'm going to try to not blast everybody's eardrums out here. So this is an ex-member. Her name is Sarah Edmondson. This is her personal account. This was on ABC News, ABC TV. It was a special on ABC a few months back, I think back in November. And this is her recounting the actual branding ritual. Now there's more to anyway, let's just rather than me belabor the point, let's get right to it. Oops, sorry, wrong video. I apologize for that. This is this video here. There we go. See, this is what happens when I get out of get out of step with my notes here. I start playing the wrong things here.
We are told the rendezvous was a secret. 5 women summoned to a house outside Albany, New York, one night this past March. Sarah Edmondson says she was one of them, willingly participating in a strange initiation ritual led by a woman who told everyone to take off their clothes and put on a blindfold.
Let us in blindfolded and sat us in a semicircle, buck naked, no clothes, on a sheepskin rug.
Edmondson told authorities that she thought they were going to get tattoos. Instead, she says, they found out they were all going to be branded.
What was that like?
It was worse than childbirth. Imagine a hot laser dragged across your flesh for 30 minutes without anesthetic.
Edmondson was in the group for 12 years, rising through the ranks. During that time, she says she got close to Nancy Saltzman's daughter, Lauren. Lauren was even Edmondson's maid of honor.
She's like my therapist, and in the ranking system, she's also above me.
Then in March, after all their years together in NXIVM, Sarah says Lauren approached her about a new and mysterious opportunity.
Life-changing, but top secret.
But Edmondson claims Lauren Saltzman demanded highly compromising collateral first. In response, she says she and some others ended up providing nude photos of themselves.
Instantly, all my alarm bells are going
Absolutely.
off. So why did you do it?
I did it because I trusted her.
Only then did she gain entry.
And the first step is making a vow of obedience to her as me being a slave and her being my master. Again,
Slave? She used the word slave?
She used the word slave.
Did you object?
Of course, yeah, and objected every stage of the way. And she said, it's a metaphor. It's like guru-disciple.
All of this, she says, led up to the night when she and 4 women submitted one by one to being branded by this woman, she says, Dr. Danielle Roberts.
And then the woman on the table screamed out in pain, twisted and turned and yelled, and the woman I was with holding her legs down, we looked at each other and we just wept.
Why didn't you let go and run out of there even naked?
It didn't seem like a choice at the time.
And can you just stand up and point where the brand is?
So it's right here, right under my underwear line.
All right, so there you go. That's the brand that all of these women got, supposedly, in this strange branding ritual. So now that we've dove in right into the juicy bit, I need to back things up a little bit here. And one thing about all of these self-help orgs, or one important thing about them, is they don't just start off with 5 students, get financial security from them, and then hit the ground running and spread by word of mouth. What again, Raniere's a smart guy. What he did is he actually he got some rather wealthy individuals to bankroll him. So he got the actresses involved. He got the PR splash from the pretty faces of Kristin Kreuk and Allison Mack and Sarah Edmondson, right? So what he needs now is these. I'm sure they're paid well, but these women can't float his operation. What he needs some obscenely wealthy backing. And all of these self-help groups do. Don't fool yourself. If you happen to get involved with Landmark or Est, they started off with some serious money backing them. Keep that in mind. It's not like the pure efficacy of their teachings floated them. They had people who were itching to spend their money somewhere, and who got bamboozled by the leaders in the self-help orgs. They had them involved. All these self-help groups require a wealthy benefactor or benefactors, to provide that initial capital, to pay their instructors, to fund advertising and signage, and most importantly, to float them during the lean times. So, until they can get enough paying pupils. And for Keith Raniere and NXIVM, those people were Sarah and Claire Bronfman. Now, these two women are, if you don't know, if you haven't heard those names before, if you're in the Albany area by chance, you probably have heard of them. But they're both heirs to the Seagram's company, beverage company, Fortune. Now, they seem to have spent a lot of their early adult lives gallivanting through Europe and living like typical wealthy American liberals over in Europe. Oh, and by the way, another aspect of these self-help groups that really rubs me the wrong way is that a lot of them incorporate progressive bullshit. I mean, they're all bamboozling, they're mostly bamboozling wealthy liberals with their progressive hoo-ha. And NXIVM is certainly no exception. And again, I hate to keep bumping things to later on the stream, but you know, hopefully we can get into Keith Raniere and his progressive bullshit later on, because NXIVM is no exception to what I'm going to call a personal rule of mine regarding self-help groups. Anyway, back to the Bronfman sisters. Yeah, so they spent a lot of their time over in Europe, living all enlightened and progressively European. And then at some point they decided to move back to Albany for whatever reason, who cares? And that's when they met Keith Raniere and were wowed by his enlightened European sounding self-help mumbo jumbo, and decided to bankroll him and NXIVM. By the way, I don't have anything against Europe or Europeans. I've traveled there myself years ago, and you know, I had a good time, and I like Europe. But there is definitely something in the way that wealthy American progressives portray Europe that goes right through me like nails on a chalkboard. Anyway, so the Bronfman sisters, you know, they fell in love with Raniere's bullshit in a self-help group, and they decided to fund it. And they went above and beyond in a lot of weird ways. They sort of pulled their strings, their connections, and donated to certain interests to help Raniere out. And one of those interests was Buddhism and the goddamn Dalai Lama himself. So let's get right in this. What you're about to watch here, this, I'm sure, you know, this is a little bit of speculation on my part, but I'm sure all of this bullshit that we're about to watch here is the Bronfman money, the Seagram's money enabling this. So yeah, let's get right to this video here, and I'll try not to blast everybody's eardrums out. I'm gonna go back to my flailing here. Unfortunately, I don't know what the audio level is because they've changed everything. YouTube has changed everything for streaming, and hopefully I'm not blaring. I tell you what, it's worth a second here just to check the chat. Yeah, Rico's asking me what my specific interest in NXIVM is. Yeah, maybe I didn't make that clear in the beginning. My specific interest here, and I apologize for not making that clear right from the beginning, but my specific interest is the fact that mainstream media portrays it like Keith Raniere, the man in the situation, is the only one who's guilty for everything that went down, and that's a bunch of bullshit. And I'm sorry that this stream is progressing, and I'm getting to my points very slowly here, but I feel like I got to cover all my bases here before I get to my actual point. I swear there's a punchline here. Stick with me. We'll get to my actual interest and point in NXIVM. It's, you know, it's worth it to say that, I mean, there's a million other topics, more important topics to cover here, but there really is something about NXIVM that I think has infected all of society. And like I said, I'm going to get to it, I swear. And I'm sorry about it taking so long, but here's what the Bronfman sisters, what their money can do for you if you're Keith Raniere.
Respected Bishop, as my spiritual brother, and respected Mayor, and my friend, these two young ladies.
There they are. Those are the Bronfman sisters right there. So they're up on stage with the Dalai Lama himself. You know, when you're a rich heir to Seagram's money, you can pay to have the Dalai Lama come from Dharamsala, come from India, all the way to Albany, New York, and join you on stage. Look at their smug, progressive smiles. They're really full of themselves here. Okay,
Ladies.
continuing on.
Those sisters.
Yeah, so the Lama got corrected by his helper there. I don't know who that guy is. He's just probably there to keep things from going off the rails here.
And then some respected teachers and also, I think, leaders and spiritual brothers, sisters.
All right, so there you go. There's Keith Raniere there on the left, and I believe the woman sitting next to him is Nancy Salzman. Now, she is, as far as I know, she's the president of ESP, of the, what's it called? The executive whatever program, the executive success program. And she still is as of the streaming of this stream. The important thing about her, I believe she's, like I said, she's the president of ESP, so she's heavily involved in NXIVM. But more importantly, she's the mother of Lauren Salzman. Now, you should remember Lauren Salzman from Sarah Edmondson's video that I played a few minutes ago. She's the woman who is Sarah Edmondson's master, or at least was when Sarah Edmondson was deep into this cult. And she is the woman. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but because nothing calls her out as far as being at this branding ritual that we've watched the video over, and nothing calls out Allison Mack on this branding ritual either. But, you know, I'm going to say that both of them are involved, or were involved personally, were at this branding ritual. I guess it's time now for me to get into my thoughts on this branding ritual, and some important notes here that you should keep in mind when thinking about this branding ritual, and they're all things that mainstream media won't emphasize this stuff for you. Like, hopefully I'm pointing out stuff that's very important as far as the branding ritual goes, that you won't see pointed out anywhere else. Right. So anyway, let's get back in the mindset here of the branding ritual, and so here it is. Here's the brand that these women supposedly got, and as you can see here, move my mouse arrow over it. It's got Allison Mack's initials incorporated in it over here, and it's got Keith Raniere's initials incorporated in it. Like they most of the coverage of this branding ritual doesn't even point that out. And it's certainly, sometimes you'll see that Keith Raniere's initials are incorporated in it, and sometimes you'll hear or see that or read that these women were duped into this, first of all, it being a tattoo, which it's not. It's just a burn mark that they got burned into their flesh. They get duped into being told it's a tattoo, and they also get duped into being told that it's some kind of mystical diagram or I don't know, maybe Greek lettering or something that has deep spiritual meaning, whereas it's just freaking Allison Mack's initials and Keith Raniere's initials. So digest all that. I mean, it's pretty awful. And as you can see over here on the left, like there's some hints at some pubic hair there. So it's obviously by their, they got branded by their Hey Nanny Nannies. Here's I believe this is Sarah Edmondson showing her personal brand, the brand that she got. And it's right by her privates there. So, I mean, just think about the message that this branding is supposed to send to anyone who tries to have sex with these women later on. I mean, it's pretty deep and it's pretty disturbing. And again, every article, every video you watch, they'll all try to pin it on Raniere. So I'm going to back things up a little bit here and give you some what I think are some insights into this branding ritual that you need to keep in mind. And first of all, it's interesting to note that Raniere, and I don't have this quote, I don't know where the hell I got this quote, but he claims that the final design of this brand with his initials in it and Allison Mack's initials in it, it was somebody else's idea. And I'm going to, if you, this image here to the right with Keith Raniere's initials in it, that's kind of spun around and flip-flopped. When you actually look at Sarah Edmondson here, the most prominent initials in her mark are Allison Mack's. Those are the initials that are upright and proper and facing you. If you haven't getting to the point where you're pulling out Sarah Edmondson's pants off and you're about to get down with her, you're staring at Allison Mack's initials. And to find Keith Raniere's initials, you actually have to, in your mind, you have to flip the brand vertically and spin it 90 degrees to the right horizontally to get Keith Raniere's initials. I mean, how fucked up is that? It's just so fucking weird. So when I think about this brand and I think about these initials and I think about the fact that Raniere has led on to the fact that they were somebody else's idea, Jesus Christ, it's got to be Allison Mack's, because you're staring at her initials when you take these women's pants off. It's fucking frightening. Yeah. So obviously Sarah Edmondson was one of these women at this ritual, and I don't know how many rituals went on in NXIVM. The only one and by the way, this ritual took place back in March of 2017. And I guess it took these women several months of attempts to alert the authorities to what they went through. Like the authorities, and in some respects, rightly enough, like the authorities sat down with these women over the course of, March 2017 up to November, before the New York Times got a hold of this, what was going on in NXIVM. So they went to the authorities first, and the authorities were like, well, shit, from all we can tell, you willingly went into this weird fucking ritual. And you're on your own. Sorry, ladies. Go get some surgery to get the scar removed or something. And to somewhat understandably, but, I guess, these women kept complaining and finally got somebody at the New York Times to pay attention, because of course we were, as a society, we're going through all this Me Too stuff. And it's interesting that, I'll get into the Me Too stuff later. That's a big chunk of the stream. And again, this stream is going way longer than I assumed it would, partly due to my flailing at the beginning and battling now. But so these women, after they were stripped, opted to stay of their own volition. So, it's in large part on them. Nobody was like pointing weapons at them or anything, And, everyone involved in this ritual had ample opportunity to GTFO, but as Sarah Edmondson said herself, she thought she was entering some kind of badass bitch boot camp. They all thought they were, doing something, secretive with a bunch of women. And that's what I want to hammer home here. There were no men whatsoever present at this branding ritual. None. Keith Raniere himself wasn't even there. And again, I get back to the mainstream media emphasizing that he was some kind of demon in control of all this. It's fucking bullshit. My speculation here is that Lauren Salzman, daughter of Nancy Salzman, the president of ESP, and Allison Mack were all spearheading this branding ritual. They did it because they wanted to impress Keith Raniere. He was like not even involved in the concept of this branding ritual, if you ask me. I could be wrong about that. I don't know, but it just smacks of women solely being in control of it. So it's all women participating in and women running the show here. And more specifically, the person branding these women is a female osteopath, she's a licensed osteopath, and that title may sound impressive, but it doesn't mean she's a doctor. Her name is Daniel Roberts, and I think she was mentioned in the Sarah Edmondson video. And it sounds real impressive, but she's not a doctor. She's just like this glorified masseuse or chiropractor. So she's the one branding these women. I guess she had access to this laser that they use to brand these women. So so as far as I can tell, it's Lauren Salzman and Allison Mack's idea and Daniel Roberts running the show, but you won't hear any of this from the mainstream media. So keep that in mind. And there's this whole branding ritual. Like when I read about it, when I watch videos about it, I can't help but think of female genital mutilation. I can't help but think of FGM, and I'm sorry to go from one disturbing topic to an even more disturbing topic, but I always think about it, and I always think about the way FGM, female genital mutilation, is portrayed by feminists and women in general. They like to spin their mystical FGM tale like it's all about the big bad patriarchy and internalized misogyny and men wishing to control and dominate women and all that crap. But when you look into the issue and the practice of FGM yourself, you come to discover that it's all female practitioners and circumcisers. Not all, but mostly. And most of its proponents and defenders are female. FGM is female genital mutilation is all like one big strange female culture in operation that gets blamed on men. And it's funny, like you'll even like when you see Western feminists, mostly white Western feminists, try to take their campaign to the poor little brown people in the Middle East and Africa. The resistance they meet, and they do meet a ton of resistance because FGM is socially accepted in a lot of ways in the Middle East and Africa. But the major resistance they meet is from Muslim women. That's who resists them the most. And it's funny, here's a Gab post from a guy I follow on Gab, and hopefully you're seeing this okay. This is a guy worth following, at Frank on Gab. If you get, he's a really interesting guy. He I believe he wrote for A Voice for Men for Paul Elam's site many times. So he's a columnist essentially for A Voice for Men, AVFM. And he gets into a lot of the same stuff that I do. So here's this Muslim woman tweeted. This is a screen capture. She's since made her Twitter account protected because I think, all the white Western feminists descended on her. Like, how dare you destroy our story about the patriarchy being the problem and when you're the problem. So none of the anti-FGM campaigners even know how this offensive word FGM was created. It was created by white saviors, uncircumcised women, in other words, white Western feminists, telling circumcised women that they have been mutilated. So there you go. I mean, it's funny that African guys, Middle Eastern guys, they like, a lot of times you'll get them to be like, wow, I don't want my wife, my daughter, my whatever mutilated. Stop the whole practice. I don't give a crap. But Muslim women are invested in the practice, and the reason why they are is maybe beyond the scope of this video. I could get into it, but this stream is going way long. And the other thing about it is, in the West we freak out over FGM. We freak out over, and more specifically, the mainstream media has been freaking out over this NXIVM branding ritual, but they really don't give a rat's ass about what college-age men go through. And before you say this is all voluntary on their part, tell me that doing this to yourself, something so gruesome, is in a strictly voluntary, happy-go-lucky atmosphere. You can't tell me there's not a cult-like, threatening atmosphere or mindset that makes you do something like this to yourself. But nobody gives a rat's ass because it's men doing it to themselves. But these NXIVM women who volunteered to go into this ritual, and because it's by their hey nannies, their privates, everybody's painting them like strictly victims, like not, conductors of their own orchestra here, or whatever, their own outcomes. All right, so that's the branding ritual. Everything I want to talk about that in all its salacious glory. And maybe it's time to take a deep breath here and take another sip of your beverage. Hopefully you're still here following along. I apologize for the length of the stream again. I wanted to get to these points quick and punchy like, but there's a lot to say here. Another sip of my lovely Hefeweizen, my favorite beer. All right, so I guess it's worth it to get into the sex slave and sex trafficking accusations that have been levied against Raniere. And keep in mind here that I haven't mentioned this, but I should. The U.S. Department of Justice is involved here, and federal courts and the FBI and Mexican federal police are involved here. So this shit has risen to the upper levels of law enforcement rather quickly, and that's all due to the November or October 2017 New York Times article. If you want to look that up, and again, I'll link all this stuff. I'll get to when I'm done streaming here, I'll put this all in the video description. I didn't have time to put it all in the video description before I started streaming. I was too busy flailing away. But that will all be there, so you can check this stuff out at your leisure. So the U.S. government is now involved, and it's now claiming that Raniere forced these women into sexual relationships with him. So that's where the sex slavery charges come from. The U.S. Department of Justice, the federal courts, the FBI are claiming that Raniere forced these women into sexual slavery. Now, my own take on this is that Allison Mack, women like Allison Mack, Lauren Salzman, they're the ones orchestrating all this, under the auspices of Raniere's tight control over it all. It's a bunch of bullshit to me. Frankly, my opinion of Allison Mack and Lauren Salzman is that they are lesbian sexual sadists. I know that sounds like a goofy term, but they are sexual sadists of some kind. I mean, they may not be strictly lesbian, or they're bisexual or something, but I'm sure the forced sexual relations that these submissive women had to go through was, involved Lauren Salzman and Allison Mack. I'm not buying that it was all Keith Raniere having sex with these women. Bullshit. And backing the truck up here, the stream truck up here, what I should get into now, if I can find it here in my notes, Where the heck is it? All right. Well, I'll just do it from. I'll do it from memory. Oh, here it is actually. Nope. Yeah. Okay. Here it is. So as you know, like sort of backing the timeline up here. So in March of last year, 2017, you have this branding ritual, but well before this branding ritual, and maybe at the time that Kristin Kreuk kind of bailed out of NXIVM and the ESP program, things in NXIVM were getting a little weird, and there was like this inner circle that started forming and tightening its ranks. And I don't know the timeline. Nobody knows the timeline. I suppose it'll all come out in the trial against Keith Raniere. But I'm assuming it's sometime around 2012, 2013 when Kristin Kreuk got out. You know, this inner circle started to form in NXIVM of higher-ups. And it even got this weird title, these initials applied to it, DOS and DOS. And that's not the crappy Windows operating system. Doesn't stand for disk operating system. It stands for, let me see if I got it in my notes here, because I'm gonna slaughter the Latin. It stands for Dominus Obsequious Sororium. Now, the funny thing is, if you look at the U.S. Department of Justice complaint against Raniere and the charges against him, and again, I'll link that. I don't have it up for the stream, but I'll link it in the video description. Their complaint, the U.S. Department of Justice complaint, as well as most articles in mainstream media and most videos covering this, has this odd translation of that Latin phrase, Dominus Obsequious Sororium, and they inject this male implication, or sometimes they outright inject the term, the phrase, the word male, and they translate it as male domination over women. Now my Latin sucks. I'm not a scholar by any means, but I don't see anything in Dominus Obsequious Sororium that suggests anything male. In fact, if you ask me, that can be translated as, it could just be translated as dominant and submissive sisterhood. So again, it's just referencing women. There's, sisterhood, sorority, there's nothing in there that suggests anything male. But everybody says it suggests Raniere's domination over his harem of women. And yeah, the other accusation that they say is that Raniere was having sex off and on with all these women in DOS or in NXIVM, all the women in the know, all in the higher up women. And again, I'm telling you that I don't buy it that he was the only one, having sexual relations in this odd cult atmosphere. It's a bunch of bullshit if you ask me. So that's the sexual slavery bit. The charges are that, the video made it obvious, but I guess I should reinforce the point, is that the video with Sarah Edmondson made it obvious that they were all asked to submit incriminating information or compromising information or pictures of themselves. So that's what was held over their heads to make them have sexual relations with, as the mainstream media story goes, with Keith Raniere alone. But I'm telling you that there likely was sexual relations going with the higher up women as well. Because they, as far as my opinion is concerned, they're sadists as well. And I think most of the sadism involved in all this NXIVM cult was their idea. All right, so that's the sexual slavery charges. The sex trafficking charges, and these are serious charges. You got to keep this in mind. This is the federal government levying charges on Keith Raniere of sexual trafficking. This and this is stuff you go away for life. I mean, this is serious business. And like I can't really, all of my research on NXIVM, I can't really get to the heart of where this sex trafficking charge comes from. To me, it kind of smacks of charge stacking. If you're familiar with the legal system and what prosecutors do, they just kind of hit you with a ton of charges so that, you know, you plead guilty to the ones they really want to hit you with, which probably in this case is sexual slavery. Yeah, and you know, they hit you with a bunch of charges and they drop those charges in a plea deal with you. You know, it's all a bunch of legal wrangling that goes on. And I can't get to, I don't know why he's hit with sex trafficking. I mean, the only thing I can figure here is, you know, at some point in what Sarah Edmondson described of this female master, female submissive dynamic that was set up by the higher ups in NXIVM, you know, when the women were told by the submissive women were told by their masters, their female masters, to do this, do that, to go there and do this, do that, I guess they considered that sex trafficking. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why the sex trafficking is involved here, and I can't get any clear explanation of why. So that's my best guess on the sex trafficking. Yeah, so we might let's move along here. Speeding ahead here. So after the New York Times article comes out, and I think it's the U.S. Attorney's Office in Brooklyn takes an interest in it and starts going after NXIVM higher ups. You got to keep in mind that now after this New York Times article comes out, there's an official investigation involved. So I'm going to take a sip here because my whistle needs a little wetting. Yeah, so there's a lot of heavy stuff going down, and Keith Raniere gets word of it, so he flees to Mexico. Sometime in fall, early winter of last year, he fled to Mexico. And he's not the only one who went to Mexico. So the mainstream media, the authorities are painting this picture of Raniere, you know, terrorizing this cadre of women, his harem. He flees to Mexico, and this harem of supposedly abused women, you know, his helperton harem of women, they packed up their bags too and went with him to freaking Mexico. And they all shack up. So again, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the Mexican offices of NXIVM are becoming important here, I hope. Or the importance of them are dawning on everybody here, I hope. So they shack up down in Mexico while this investigation up in the United States is going on. They shack up in this luxury $10,000 a week villa down in Puerto Vallarta. So it's, you know, it's not like they're hiding in the mountains in freaking Oaxaca or Chiapas. You know, they're living large down in Mexico off the you know, the money that NXIVM has made. And again, keep in mind that NXIVM was bankrolled by two women, two sisters, the heirs to the Seagram's fortune. None of this would have been possible without their deep pockets. Just keep that all in mind. So eventually whatever happens with the investigation happens, and an arrest warrant for Keith Raniere is issued by the United States government, by the Department of Justice. And so let's take a look. This is actual footage here. This is video of the arrest going down. And you know, the thing you want to notice here is, look who's standing out in front of what I assume is a cell phone camera. Look who it is down in Mexico. Well, all right, let's let the video speak for itself here.
Let's go in the car. We're gonna follow them.
Do you recognize that person right there? Like, YouTube hit me with spam. That's Allison Mack standing in front. And I'm going to guess that holding this cell phone camera is Lauren Salzman. I don't know that. I think I've heard her voice before in a video, and the voice speaking here just sounds really familiar, but I know that's fucking Allison Mack down in Mexico with Keith Raniere as the Mexican federales take him away. It's just fucking, and nobody mentions this in the mainstream media. So there she is.
Get out of the way.
Did you hear that? That's Salzman saying "get out of the way" because she wants to film Raniere in the Fed vehicle, and Allison Mack is standing like an idiot in front. So, yeah, it's a really telling dynamic there. I don't want to make too big of a deal out of it, but if I'm right about that being Lauren Salzman holding the camera and Alice, she's just basically ordering Allison Mack around. Like keep that. There's such a female hierarchy and pecking order to these batshit insane broads that it just makes me mental. Like, and I know they're all orchestrating the shit that went down, and none of them. My point of showing this video is there's Keith Raniere getting dragged off to prison in Texas. I think they took him to Texas, and he didn't even post bail for whatever reason, as far as I know. I don't know why that is. So the only one arrested in this supposedly sex enslaving, sex trafficking cult is Keith Raniere. Allison Mack, Lauren Salzman, everybody else, Daniel Roberts, who's branding people. Nobody female is getting fucking arrested. And it makes me fucking mental. But I'm going to get to, and now we're getting close to my whole reason for doing this stream. So yeah, let me let the rest of this video play out.
Huh? Lauren's coming.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay, so there you go. I'm wrong about that. Whoever's holding this camera is saying Lauren's coming. All right, so, but they're all worried about Lauren because, again, she's like head bitch number one in all of this. So there you go.
Let's go, you guys.
So that's proof that Lauren Salzman was there anyway. I mean, if nothing else. So yeah, just a couple things to keep in mind about that. Just how batshit insane are these broads going down there? And now, if you see in my Gab post here, I forget what article I read about, but allegedly these batshit insane broads got in vehicles and got into a high-speed chase with the Mexican feds. They're actually chasing after the Mexican feds. Now, what did they have in mind? I have no fucking idea. I don't have any information on that. I can't, any research I've done about it. I don't know what was on their minds. The only thing I can do is speculate once again that they were either trying to free Keith Raniere or they were just trying to find out where the fuck he was being taken so that they could, stay up on their cult god here, their guru, and where he's being taken, what's happened to him. I assume it's the latter, but it's possible. You don't know with these. I mean, if they're going to brand people, who the hell knows? They may have thought they could have, freed him, run the Mexican feds off the road. Who the fuck knows with these women? They're out of their fucking minds. All right, so there's a billion more details here, but this stream is carrying on, and holy shit, what time is it? It's 8 o'clock. I've got about another hour here before I have to be off and running. All right, so let me get to my analysis here, and let me try to keep it brief. And I've sort of hit on it already, but let me I've hinted at it, but let me really get to it here. And first of all, just real quick, let me get to the stuff that we're all tired of this feminist bullshit. We're all tired of the Me Too bullshit. We're all tired of Time's Up, this whole fucking hypocritical, bogus movement bullshit. So let me just, I'm gonna touch on it lightly here. I'm gonna touch on it real quick, and I'm gonna move on to something that I'm more interested in analyzing here and explaining here. And let me check the chat real quick here. All right. Yeah. So. Wow. The Time's Up Me Too movement bullshit and its hypocrisy. I mean, there are so many women, so many feminists, so many Hollywood hypocritical actresses, so many female comedians like Sarah Silverman. There's so many, goddamn many of them, that I'm just going to concentrate on one here, on one of these feminists, and that's Jessica Valenti. And they all flipped out over Louis C.K. And I'm just going to assume you know what went down with him. Jessica Valenti had an absolute fucking freak out tweeting shitstorm over Louis C.K. And here I'll just quickly go over it. Here she is. She claims unwilling person, but she's a fucking liar. Louis C.K. got consent from these women to, I'm not condoning what Louis C.K. did. It's freaking ridiculous to sit down in front of women and jerk off, and to me anyway, it's ridiculous to get pleasure from that. I don't know, but whatever, he got consent to do it, and that's his thing. I'm not going to bash the guy. It's ridiculous to me. It's not something I'm interested in, but whatever. It's not unwilling people, Jessica Valenti, you piece of shit. He got fucking consent. Yeah, and here she is trying to make a big deal out of it, that he masturbated in front of consenting women. And the fucking ironic thing about Jessica Valenti is she's the author of the fucking book Yes Means Yes that set all this bullshit in motion. All the laws on college campuses now about Yes Means Yes, and all the bullshit college-age men are going through. This fucking cunt, and I'm going to just call her that because that's what she is. This fucking cunt is, the author of Yes Means Yes, and here's Louis C.K. getting his yes, which supposedly means yes, and she's fucking bashing him. And all of these fucking hypocritical, fucking disingenuous feminists, they all did it. But, surprise, surprise, none of that. Have you ever heard any of them mention Allison Mack? Have you ever heard any of them mention Lauren Salzman? Have you ever heard any of them mention the NXIVM branding ritual that was all participated by women? It's all women participating in and controlling. Have any of these fucking cunts mentioned this NXIVM branding ritual and Allison Mack? They probably don't even know who the fuck Allison Mack is. They watched 5 minutes of Smallville and they saw her face and forgot about her. This whole Me Too movement, this whole Time's Up move, it's all fucking bullshit. And start to finish, none of them mention. And there was some politician woman who was accused of sexual harassment, and none of these feminists will mention them either. All right, so before I blow my fucking stack, I'm gonna move on to hopefully a more cerebral point here, and that's like the larger societal issue here. Let me take another sip of my beverage. And at this point, I really want to guzzle my beer and have another. This shit is so fucking infuriating and disturbing. But so let's forget all the Me Too feminism stupidity. We might get back to it later if there's time. And again, I'm bumping another thing to later on, which at this point probably isn't going to happen. This stream is out of control long. There's something much more insidious operating at all levels and within all political creeds of society. It doesn't, if you're a right winger, you're a left winger. If you're alt-right, you're progressive, you're centrist, you're libertarian, you're socialist. It doesn't fucking matter. Whatever your belief system, even if you're feminist, whatever, you've either played, especially if you're feminist, you've probably played a part in this, but you've either played a part in what I'm about to vent about here. You've played a part in its perpetuation, or if you're red-pilled on this subject matter, you've definitely witnessed it going down. And what am I getting at here? I'm getting at the Pareto principle, and hopefully you've all heard of that. The Pareto principle. Do I need to explain it? I'm going to try to make a brief explanation here. The Pareto principle was originally adopted as an economic rule, a rule in economics. And it says that 80% of your revenue as a business or a corporation comes from 20% of your clientele. That's the as far as I know, that's the genesis of the Pareto principle. But, Rico mentioned Jordan Peterson, and Jordan Peterson loves to throw around the Pareto principle and how it applies to a lot of other places besides economics. And I agree with him there. And we see it cropping up all over the place. It's this weird 20/80 rule. Sometimes you'll hear it called that. And in my estimation, it especially applies to male and female relationships. Now, I've never seen Jordan Peterson, talk about it in regards to male and female relationships, in regards to human relationships. It doesn't even have to be about dating, really. And I'll get to how it applies to dating. Maybe he has. I don't know. I just haven't personally seen him do that. And most of the time he applies it. He applies it like a champ. So, and I like Peterson. And just real quick, addressing Rico's question, I'm a big fan of Peterson. He's a tradcon and he rubs me the wrong way. As a MGTOW guy and his past run-ins with MGTOW, if you followed me on Twitter, and I rage quit Twitter, like I mentioned, I think I mentioned in the beginning of the stream. It's going on so long now I can't even remember what I mentioned. But when I was on Twitter, I tried to take Jordan Peterson to task, and he's a busy guy. He's got a lot of major outlets trying to come at him. He's not going to respond to me. I'm small potatoes. But I tried to take him to task on his opinion of MGTOW, but that went nowhere. Anyway, later on he apologized to MGTOW, so props to him on doing that. I like Jordan Peterson. I disagree with a lot of his tradcon stuff, but maybe later on I'll do a video on Peterson. It's pretty late in that he's like he's already his star has risen, and it's kind of late now to do stuff on him, and he's like an accepted commodity out there in the real world. There's nothing I'm going to say about him that would amount to meaningful criticism at this point, but I do have some criticisms of him, but generally I really like him. Anyway, getting back to NXIVM here. The Pareto principle definitely applies here, especially in this NXIVM situation. Let me try to quickly get to why I say that. And actually, before I get to my point here, I need to make something really clear, because I'm going to be talking about the Branch Davidians and David Koresh. That's right. We're going to be taking a trip down memory lane here. And if you remember Warren Jeffs and the YFC ranch, the polygamous ranch, I'm going to be talking about them a little bit here. But none of what I'm about to say here about the Pareto principle and how it may, in my opinion, it is kind of this natural human state of affairs that encourages cult environments like NXIVM. None of the opinion that I'm about to express has anything to do with children who got caught up in bullshit like down in Waco, Texas, the Branch Davidians and the YFC ranch. I want to make that really clear. I'm not talking about the poor kids who got involved here. They don't play a willing or active role, unlike the adults. And yes, the adult women. So I'm going to be talking about them in the whole Branch Davidian, NXIVM, YFC ranch situations. But the kids they're just unfortunate passive victims. And it's a crying fucking shame what happened to them. But, we should take them as a warning sign. The rest of us adults should take them as a warning sign that we need to be very skeptical and wary of how the Pareto principle kind of manifests itself in adult behavior. I'm not saying we have to light our hair on fire, every time we see the Pareto principle in action. I mean, the most common place you see the Pareto principle as in regards to human sexual relationships and the hookup culture and all is with PUAs. I mean, PUAs, their bread and butter is applying the Pareto principle. But anyway, we'll get to that very shortly. So we don't have to light our hair on fire over it, but I honestly believe its potential side effects, and damaged children being one of them, are among the many reasons why so many societies hold monogamy in high esteem. Anyway, with that little disclaimer aside, so many of these damn cults, whether they're religious or self-help, the Branch Davidians, Polygamy Ranch, NXIVM, whatever the hell their point in life is, whatever their genesis is, it's amazing how many of these goddamn cults, once they disconnect from modern society and modern sensibilities and that, holding monogamy dear, And the laws, there are some laws regarding monogamy in a lot of societies, and we got to keep that in mind. It's amazing how many of these cults wind up exhibiting exactly the pattern of male and female nature, male and female behavior MGTOW has been going on about for years now. In a general sense of human relationships, MGTOW has been carrying on about it. PUAs, on the other hand, they've been talking about it more in the specific hookup scene sense. And they've been talking about it for years too. The 2080 rule. And again, I got to stress that I'm not talking about any children involved here. This is all of what I'm saying here involves the adults. And the problem I see here, and the rub here for me, and the whole reason I'm doing this stream, and finally we've gotten to it, is that this Pareto principle, it's manifestations, its side effects, its ills, its bad side effects, it all gets fucking pinned on men. Just forget. Let's go back to PUAs for a second. Forget NXIVM and Branch Davidians and the the polygamy ranch. Just think of PUAs for a minute. Think of Roosh V. This guy's, he had a couple of years ago, he had a career going for himself. He had seminars, he had YouTube videos that were monetized. He was doing really well with this whole pickup advice. Now, I don't buy into it. I think it's a bunch of fucking bullshit. Me personally, I don't buy into it. But I mean, there are some lessons to be learned from PUAs. I shouldn't say it's all bullshit. There are some essentials about female nature that you should pay attention to PUAs about. But you should be very, PUAs will get you, they'll throw you into the meat grinder, and they won't tell you about what will fucking happen once you get into the meat grinder. That's why I'm MGTOW, because MGTOW does warn you about the meat grinder. But anyway, Roosh V, that's my criticism of him, whatever. I don't have a problem with the guy otherwise, but, when he starts talking about, his term alpha men, I think he uses that term. When he starts talking about the 2080 rule, and let's just, for those of you who don't know what the Pareto principle is, the 2080 rule as it applies to men and women and dating and all that, it's the idea that 80% of women flock to the 20% of desirable men, all these PUA types like Roosh V, and I guess Roosh V is in this upper 20% echelon. So, just think about it. Anybody who's, I hate to use the term alpha male, and just real quick, I agree. I haven't watched a lot of MGTOW content in a while, but I've been keeping an eye on it. But I've just been very busy in my own personal life. But and like John the Other, I think said this a lot. I don't know if he still makes this point because, like I said, I haven't watched much MGTOW content recently. But he used to make the point that alpha male, that's a term that's, something that women create, something that women perpetuate. Being an alpha male is just is whatever perception women have of you. It's not something men as a whole, it's not something men should worry about being applied to them. And beta men, you just forget about it. Those terms are just crap. But I suppose we can use the term alpha male to describe these upper 20% of men who, according to the Pareto principle, are getting all the action from 80% of women. But yeah, so Roosh V, if he's one of these guys and let's say, he has sex with a ton of women, he's portrayed as the villain in that situation. The women that flock to him, they're all victims. It's like, again, it's like moths to a flame. They have no control over their own behavior of, these 80% of women flocking to these 20% of men. They're just complete victims in all this. They're not self-actualized adults, self-actualized, let me pronounce that clearly, acting of their own volition. They're just victims that got drew into this sinister scenario by men. It's a fucking bunch of bullshit. The Pareto principle, if it has some ill side effects, women are equally fucking to blame in all of it. And they're ones perpetuating this 2080 rules. they're just as guilty as men. There's no fucking just men are guilty in all of this. You know, they're not the didn't do nothings, getting victimized in all this fucking bullshit. They need to own up to their responsibility in this behavior manifesting itself in human behavior. And, you know, it's this idea that women are victims of the Pareto principle as applies to human relationships, you know, the 20/80 rule. It's so ingrained in all of us that just think about the vicious reaction to the MGTOW community even bringing this rule up. I mean, guys, the knee-jerk reaction to MGTOW guys even daring to bring up the 20/80 rule is fucking fascinating, really. You know, they're criminals for even mentioning it, let alone, I mean, generally MGTOW guys see it in action and stay away from it. They don't participate in it. I mean, I know some MGTOW guys who do use this information to their advantage, and then that's fine because, again, in my estimation, they're dealing with adult women who know what they're doing. So if you're a MGTOW guy and you operate with this idea in mind and use it to your advantage, you're not a villain for doing that. You're just a keen observer of human behavior. And the women that supposedly are your victim, fuck that. They are equally as complicit in all of it, in my opinion anyway. So yeah, so the Allison Macks of the world, the women who engage in and promote this behavior within cults like NXIVM, and all the adult women in Branch Davidians and the YFC Ranch, and I'm sorry, they're adults. It's time for them to start fucking acting like it. So all the Allison Macks of the world, and they need to be blamed here as well. You know, because it's women like Allison Mack, they gravitate towards one male. They're the ones perpetuating the alpha male myth. They're the ones gravitating towards this, this upper echelon of men, what they perceive as an upper echelon of men. The Pareto principle wouldn't even fucking exist if it wasn't for women doing what they do. It wouldn't manifest itself. It wouldn't be out there. It wouldn't be something. It would exist in other realms of society, but it wouldn't exist in human relationships. And this is why these self-help bullshit programs and these cults thrive so frequently. Why there are so many of them, because these women perpetuate them, and I think I've made that point clearly enough. So yeah, the short of all this Pareto dissertation on my part is that many of these religious and self-help cults have leaders with harems, and it's in large part thanks to the women who let it happen. And this should come as a surprise to no one who's been paying attention to MGTOW content and more generally manosphere content. And again, I'm not invoking any of the children involved who obviously were caught up in the weird Branch Davidian and YFC Ranch bullshit. Not talking about any of them, because they can never be actualized adults like adult women. They can never give any meaningful consent in any of this, but women can, adult women. The children are just like kind of collateral damage of like a worst case Pareto scenario running amok, and we all should keep that in mind when considering the adult behavior in all of these scenarios. And again, I don't want to create a panic here over PUAs and the hookup culture. It's not where I'm going with this. It's just it's not this 20/80 rule doesn't always lead to cults. You have Landmark and Est, which as far as I know aren't cults like NXIVM is. That's not the point I'm getting at here. So bottom line is no one admits to women being complicit in all of these scandals like NXIVM. No one wants to acknowledge their guilt. It's a bunch of bullshit. We're seeing it again here with NXIVM. And the American and Mexican authorities are a clear example of this. They arrest Raniere, but so far not Allison Pimp Mack, as she's called by everybody in NXIVM, or a lot of people in NXIVM in the know, or Lauren Salzman, who obviously had a major part in this branding ritual and what went on with this cult, and was down there in Mexico with Raniere when he fled. They haven't arrested the female osteopath, Danielle Roberts, who branded these supposed sex slaves. Have they? I mean, ask yourself why the fuck none of those arrests are going down. I mean, it's just fucking incredible. The FBI is they're falling for this Pareto principle myth that women are victims to it. That's what I'm getting at here. This is the infuriating part for me. This is what's operating, at a low level here and driving all this bullshit going on here, and the fact that women are getting off scot-free and all this. It's there, law enforcement agencies and like every sector of society, of course the Me Too fucking infuriating movement, they're all falling prey to this notion that like women are precious, sacred, and innocent, and they can do no wrong. Again, I'm just reinforcing stuff we all know. And the FBI agents are probably operating under this assumption as well. They're assuming they're just simply victims in all this, and that's why they're not. The women are down in Mexico didn't get handcuffed and loaded into law enforcement vehicles. And even if they're, just think about the idea what they're operating with. They're operating with the idea that all these women are, these adult women are brainwashed and coerced. Now, as an adult, what the fuck does it matter if you're brainwashed and coerced? Are you, so if I get brainwashed and coerced into murdering somebody, I'm not guilty? I mean, NXIVM men, do they get out of the, like if I was in NXIVM and I had a sex slave and I was branding women's nethers, could I say, oh, I was just brainwashed or coerced as a man? I don't fucking think so. I wouldn't get, if I was the guy, if I was the osteopath, if I was a male osteopath with that branding iron in my fucking hand, I would be in a jail cell right now down in Texas next to fucking Keith Raniere singing Kumbaya or fucking Swing Low or Kumbaya. I don't think you fucking sing that in a jail cell, but I'd be singing some friggin' spiritual or whatever and banging my tin can against the cells. I fucking would. It's fucking ridiculous. And again, I want to stress that Keith Raniere wouldn't even be a problem for us as a society, assuming you agree that he is a problem, if the Bronfman sisters didn't bankroll his whole operation. Where are they in all this? Now, I there may be an objection to what I'm getting at here, and it may be like, you may be saying to yourself, hey, Planet Evans, they can't arrest everyone in these cult situations. They have to do a triage and figure out who is victim and who isn't. And they have to make an example of someone. So they just, they take the guy at the top. And at first blush, that's a reasonable stance. It's a reasonable position to have. It's common sense, right? Just pick off the guy at the top. But when you think about it a little more deeply, that guy at the top approach is really counterproductive. I mean, if our end goal here is to limit the amount of cults like this that crop up, limit the amount of people that become enslaved sexually, get sex trafficked, that get branded in their privates and their nethers, it's not an effective way to prevent that. And I'm going to use a very simple deer hunting analogy here, a way to keep deer populations down. If you're in wildlife management and you only enact policy that focuses on shooting the bucks, the does will simply migrate to another buck and become part of his harem. And he will immediately mate with them, with as many of them as possible. And the deer population, rather than decline like you thought would happen by shooting bucks, it's going to explode. and they're going to consume everything in the forest you are trying to protect. And I hope the metaphor here isn't lost on anybody. Your forest ecosystem is going to fucking collapse. In other words, you're a fucking idiot. You have to have doe season. Plain and simple. You have to shoot a few does. Nobody likes to hear this. I mean, even taking let's step away from the metaphor, even talking about this wildlife management policy and, in the real world with real people, when you tell them you need to have doe season, it's funny. They like flinch and it's like, oh no, the doe could be pregnant. Why are you shooting does? Oh, the precious female of the deer population. Try it in, in general discussions with normies out there. They have a recoil reaction to it. So, I mean, obviously the metaphor here is that if we're worried about these cults, we gotta pick off a few of these goddamn women. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. All right, so I got to bring this stream to a close. I have a million more things I want to get to here. Maybe I'll do another stream about it. I don't know. But I want to get, there's so many things I wanted to cover again here. Let me just check my notes here to make sure I'm not, oh, you know what, real quick, let's just go over, here's, let me check the chat again here in case anybody has a, okay, let me check. Louis C.K. asked if he could jerk off in front of them. Yeah, exactly. JBP has all the elements to be red-pilled. Sorry, Jordan B. Peterson. Duh. Has all the elements to be red-pilled. He knows about birth control, pill, hypergamy, feminism, how men and boys are falling behind. Peterson did address the manosphere claim about Pareto distribution too. Thanks for that information, Rico. I didn't know that. I in fact, at some point here real soon, I want to look into that. And Lochef says, Pareto Principle 2080 is arbitrary in economics. People who say it applies are mostly just victims of observation bias. It's closer in female to male attraction rule, but again, not based in anything. Yeah, I agree with that. And that's Locke, yes. Loke, yes. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your YouTube handle there. Yeah, so some good points there, guys. Thanks for that. Whoops, I still have my microphone window open here. Yeah, so it's worth it here. Real quick, let's go over Allison Mack and her. I mean, you may be thinking here like she's just getting off scot-free, and it's making me fucking mental. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, nothing here really. Well, she was down in Mexico, so what? But let's just take a look here. I've archived some of her NXIVM recruiting pitches here, and let's just take a look at a few of these. Here she is. She's trying to recruit Emma Watson, and think about how robotic. Like when we go through all these recruiting tweets here, this is a real. I mean, she's really trying to. She's trying to get in touch with Emma Watson here. I participate in a unique human development and women's movement I'd love to tell you about. As a fellow actress, I can relate. So yeah, she's really trying to relate to Emma Watson. You go, wow, she's trying to get Emma Watson on board with NXIVM and Janus. Could you imagine if Emma Watson got friggin' branded? She probably wouldn't fucking say anything. She'd just be like Kristin Kreuk. And we're going to get to Kristin Kreuk in a minute here because she doesn't get away with the way her behavior either, as far as I'm concerned. All right, so let's take a look at another one here. Oh, it's another. She's going after Emma Watson again. I'm a fellow, actually, because I guess Emma Watson wasn't getting the message, you know. I'm a fellow actress like yourself and involved in an amazing women's movement. I think you'd dig. I'd love to chat if you're open. Yeah, so she's working Emma Watson hard there. It'd just be fucking amazing if Emma Watson got involved. I haven't paid attention to Emma Watson. I'm sure she's been in on the Me Too movement, though. And here she is. She's getting fucking propositioned by Allison Mack and probably doesn't think anything of it. Has no idea who the fuck Allison Mack is and what she's been up to. Zoe Canadian. All right, so I think Zoe... Who the fuck is Zoe Canadian? Can we find out? Zoe Canadian. She's a writer-director from Canada. Probably another feminist. Gives a crap. Really doesn't matter. You seem like an awesome woman and someone who I'd love, I guess it's supposed to be I'd love to work with. It's bad enough that I'm tongue-tied most of the time. Now we got to have typos. And someone who I'd love to work with. I do. So I'm reading this wrong. Someone who would love the work I do with an amazing woman's org. Okay, sorry. I'm having a friggin' dyslexia moment here or something. Would you be open to talk? All right, so let me read that again because I slaughtered it. You seem like an awesome woman and someone who would love the work I do with an amazing women's org. Would you be open to talk? There's some weird phrasing there, but would you be open to talk? All right, let's real quick check out the last one here. Jess Wiener, I have no idea who that is. Hopefully not any relation to Anthony Weiner. My name is Allison Mack, and I'm an actress and fellow crusader for women. See, I mean, I don't know that Allison Mack outrun pushes the whole feminism thing, but she definitely likes to wear it like a cloak and definitely likes to try to rope these other feminists into this whole next thing. And feminists just fucking ignore it like it never fucking happened. Whatever. I'm getting back into the stuff that I just wanted to cover real quick because we've all already been there. We've been down that road. We know how infuriating they are. They're not worth our time anymore. But no, unfortunately, we gotta address it every once in a while. My name is Allison Mack, and I'm an actress and fellow crusader for women. I would love to talk about corroborating you down. All right, so there you go. I mean, I'm sure she's done other recruiting pitches. Those are the ones that, and this is back when I was still on Twitter that I was noticing this shit, and I just wanted to archive it because I figured she'd get arrested and her Twitter account would be taken down and I'd lose access to all this stuff. But of course, silly me, thinking women are going to get arrested. What an idiot I am. All right, so that's that. And real quick, let's talk about. I'm gonna have to do another stream on self-help orgs and my criticism of them. It's at this point it's above and beyond the topic matter I've been addressing here. Let's get to Kristin Kreuk real quick because she's she's just trying to pretend like she's I don't know what happened and I just lost my oh crap, where is the yeah, here's yeah, so the thing to keep in mind about Kristin Kreuk is she had an awful lot to say about Harvey Weinstein and more in general. I don't know where the heck, let me see if I can scare it up directly here. There we go. She had a lot to say about why does it keep doing that? I don't know why. This is like Firefox behavior and it's making me mental. Sorry about that. Reloading this every time. Let me see if I click on it direct. Nope, it loaded the conversation, but when I scroll down, it makes it go. All right. Anyway, yeah. So she had an awful lot to say about Harvey Weinstein and Weinstein, however you say that. She had a lot to say about actresses more specifically, being harassed on the set. But she never seemed to say a goddamn thing about Allison Mack. And let's just take a look here. This is her statement about when Keith Raniere got arrested. She finally felt the need. Hold on a second here. My headphones are freaking out on me and doing something silly. So after Keith Raniere and all these, Lauren Salzman and Allison Mack fled down to Mexico. I mean, Kristin Kreuk said nothing about NXIVM really, as far as the scandal going on. She just kept real quiet about it, kept quiet about her involvement. She tried to just dodge the bullet basically. But after, it became obvious that some weird shit was going down, she decided to distance herself here. So here's her statement. When I was about 23, I took an executive success program / NXIVM intensive. What I understood to be a self-help personal growth course that helped me handle my previous shyness, which is why I continued with the program. I left about 5 years ago. So, in 2012, 2013, she's talking about. This is when that inner circle in NXIVM started to form, as far as I can tell. About 5 years ago, I left and had minimal contact with those who were still involved. The accusations that I was in the inner circle in DOS, in Dominus Obsequia Sororium, or recruited women as sex slaves are blatantly false. During my time, I never experienced any legal or nefarious activity. I'm horrified and disgusted by what has come out about DOS, Dominus Obsequious Sororium. Thank you to all the brave women who have come forward to share their stories and expose DOS. I can't imagine how difficult this has been for you. I'm deeply disturbed and embarrassed to have been associated with NXIVM. I hope that the investigation leads to justice for all those affected. So no mention of Allison Mack, no mention of Allison Mack's initials being fucking branded into these people, into their privates, nothing. And more specifically, no mention of why Kristin Kreuk just bailed out all of a sudden. It seemed to be working perfect for her. It was helping her with her shyness. She got this, she's moving on with her life. She's getting a bunch of acting deals. And she just bails out and cuts off all contact. Now, she said she had minimal contact with those who are still... That, to me, is cutting off contact. I mean, if you're that deep in NXIVM, if you're, shilling for this ESP program and touting its great benefits, and then all of a sudden you just fucking bail out and you cut off contact with the group, you knew something was fucking up. Or something was up. Something was definitely fucking up. But you fucking knew something was up. And you said nothing. And you especially said nothing about Allison Mack, Lauren Salzman. And I guarantee you these are women you held in high regard, Kristin Kreuk, and you still do. And you're crossing your fingers that the FBI doesn't go after them, that they don't get involved in this arrest. And you're just another disingenuous, spineless, Hollywood feminist piece of shit. Because here you are, you can talk about, the acting sets and how terrible it was that there were a few pickup lines being thrown around and it's so terrible that, these women who Harvey Weinstein were involved with, decided to negotiate career advancement in a hotel room. Oh, it's so horrible, they're victim. Who the fuck do you know that does that? Who besides these Hollywood actresses go to a fucking hotel room alone to negotiate their career advancement? It's all, this Me Too shit is such fucking bullshit from start to finish. It's driving me fucking mental. And I think that's all I got. I think that's all the vent I can vent. That's all the steam I can vent in this stream. All right, everybody. Before I have an aneurysm here over Kristin Kreuk and her bullshit and Allison Mack and their bullshit, that's it. I hope this was enjoyable. I hope it was understandable. I'm sorry about the flailing at the beginning. I'm going to try to get better at these streams. I want to do them more often. I've got a lot of stuff I want to cover. And I hope my take on NXIVM was interesting. I know it's not a real big deal in the scope of things. And, Rico asked me in the beginning what my interest was. And I hope my interest in all of this is enlightening and interesting to everybody else. And I hope it was a refreshing concept that, people haven't already thought of. I really hope you guys got something out of the stream. And I'm sorry it went so long. Like I always say in my videos, I'm going to try to be more prolific with my content, with my output. I do have a day job in a real life, believe it or not, which I have to get to shortly here. Such as it is, it's my life. But if you want to check out more regular content and uploading and opinions from me, make yourself a Gab account and follow me on Gab. The link to that is in my channel banner. It's a little green frog in my channel banner. Excuse me. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I rage quit Twitter a few months ago. I may talk about that at a later date, so you won't find me there anymore. I'm sick of Twitter and its bullshit. And if you'd like more streaming and more video content from me, beware, here comes the sales pitch. You can find my Bitcoin tip jar in the channel description in the About page or the About tab on my YouTube channel. So if you really want to show me your appreciation, head there. And I'll also link to it down in the description. And that's it, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And stay away from these fucking self-help cults. You can do it all on your own. Just watch some MGTOW videos, man. Watch some MGTOW content. Don't get involved in this bullshit. It's not helping anybody. You know, you can do it on your own, and there's so much MGTOW content out there to help you avoid, you know, screwing up your life. Anyway, that's it for me, guys. Thanks for tuning in.